everyone. I wanted to stop by and talk about April. So April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I wanted to talk a bit about what that means and also about what happens after a child is taken out of an abusive situation. Because many times children don't get swooped off to a magical land, fairy land, where they are getting healing that they need, or a unicorn teaches them how to deal with their emotions. It's not like that at all. Actually, it can be quite the opposite. So I wanted to touch base on that, and I thought it would be best to do if I told my own story of my trauma and what happened after I was taken out of that abusive environment. Well, actually, I wasn't taken out of that environment. My abuser was taken out of the environment. So many things can happen to kids. For me, it was that my father, who was my abuser, was kicked out of our home and was not supposed to contact us. And then there are other times where children are taken out of their home completely and put into foster care, and that's a whole other area that needs to be discussed. But I'm going to tell you guys my story and the abuse that I felt, not only from my abuser, but also from society and from the court system. Many states and countries, they don't have great laws. Now, I was a child back in the late 80s, early 90s. Things have definitely changed since then, but from what I'm hearing about the court systems, especially in my state, nothing has really changed in the way that children are handled when they have to work with the court system to send their abuser to prison for what they've done. So, trigger warning here. I'm going to be talking about my personal experience, and I hope that this will give you a better idea of what happens and what we need to do to protect children from receiving more abuse and trauma after their initial trauma. Okay, so when I was 14, I was living in a very, very abusive relationship with my father. I had brothers. We were all abused in many different ways that children should never be used or treated. And my father was a big force of nature and a very, very scary person. My brother had enough of all the different kinds of abuses that we were dealing with, and had told his tutor about what was happening. And that's what really started this rolling. So from early age up until about 14, I was living in a very, very abusive and scary situation in my life every single day. And there was really no stopping it. There was no way to get away from it except for what my brother did. And so that started us on the track. First, the courts wanted us to see if we could work things out. They wanted the family, all of it, to have a therapy session or two to talk about, I guess, the abuse or something like that. And I'm going to tell you, the therapist, he was a social worker, was not good at all. He was terrible. First of all, I will never allow people to call me Jenny, because he would call me that, and I would always say I don't want him calling me that, but he would continue to. So right there, I'm thrown into therapy with my abuser and a social worker who is just as abusive emotionally. When that came to pass that was not going to be helpful, we got contact with my father, but that never really stopped my father from coming over to the house. Sure, the law told him that he can't come near us, but he didn't really care. So he would come to the house, and sometimes I would hide, sometimes I would go down and tell him he needs to leave. Now, this is 14 years old. The court system was not helpful at all. When everything first came out, my brothers had discussed all the types of abuses that they were receiving, but I kind of held back on the sexual abuse that I was receiving. And a few months after we started the whole role of, court and, figuring out how we were going to get him to be put away, that's what my family wanted. It was like I was being abused all over again. We had guardian ad litems. And they were kind of working for both parents, so that was really weird. My father always seemed to have some position in it, that he still was able to make decisions about us, and he would, just do terrible things to, make us feel as though we were never free. And it took 4 years of my life, 4 or 5 years of my life, through the court system, when I finally told them about the sexual abuse. They didn't believe me. They thought that I was just saying it because everybody else was saying it, right? I wasn't ready to say it or talk about it. So when I got pushed back on, did that really happen? Are you just saying that because the others said it? They eventually made me go in front of a grand jury and talk explicitly about the things that my father had done to me. Abuse. Making a child do that is abuse as far as I'm concerned. Socially, if you've lived in a town all your life and your father is somewhat of a known figure in that town, socially you can get abused as well. After all was said and done, my father moved out. I would have to walk to work every day. I was 15, 16 years old, walking to work, and I'd have to pass by a gas station that was owned by this man that I've known all my life. And he decided that my mother and we were lying, and that my father was being, lied about, and that it was all untrue. He, every time I'd have to pass by this gas station and he was outside, he would call me a liar. He'd tell me I was a lying bitch and that my father was innocent and I'm just a liar. So socially, I would also get pushback from the town people that knew my father and knew him throughout the entire process. Eventually, I found out that that gas station owner also refused to pump gas for my mother after it all happened. So my father being woven into the town was another really difficult part, where I would get abuse from people who didn't believe me, who wanted to believe that he was the stand-up guy that they always thought he was. So, like I said, it depends on what people do for children to get them the help that they need. My mother got us into therapy. She did everything she possibly could for us, but there were outside things going on that I couldn't, she couldn't stop. She couldn't make them stop traumatizing her children because of this court hearing, and because, we're trying to get him away for as long as we possibly could. Now, I went through 5 years of this. When I was 19, my father, we finally had the court hearing. He was pleading guilty to a bunch of charges. And we go in and, the judge starts reading the charges. And my father at one point said, well, that was just wrestling. And, saying, well, no, actually, that wasn't abuse. We were just wrestling. And they took that as abuse. So the judge got really angry and said, I'm not hearing your plea. And then we had to start all over again and get another court date, like pushing it out until finally he came to the court hearing and he pled guilty to all of the charges. My father went away for 4 years. 4. When I had a lifetime of trauma. And when he came out, they said, he went through the whole process of, pedophile, therapy, or whatever the heck they call it. Some sort of, pedophile therapy, and that he'd be okay. Well, that obviously was not the case, because in 2022, my brother was sent a post on Facebook about my father being extradited from one state to another state for terrible child abuse, sexual abuse, on his third wife's family member. So it didn't stop. He didn't get better, because they don't get better. And he's now in prison in this state for the rest of his life. And if that had happened before, these children would not have had their own trauma by his hands. We really need to look at our system and how it treats our children. Children should be believed. There are definitely ways that psychologists, psychiatrists can figure out if there's something going on that, isn't true. But believe children. They don't make this stuff up because they want attention. They don't make it up because maybe they got mad at their family member. They don't make it up just to have something to talk about, because it's extremely difficult to go through what they are going through. Let's try to help our children heal after, as well as trying to prevent what may happen. We need to have stronger laws and stronger penalties for the things that people do to children. I'm sorry, I feel very strongly about this, and I am hoping that I will be able to work with groups that are also working on this, children's groups that are working to help children after they have, they found out that there's been abuse to this child. And I hope that this will help you to better understand that it doesn't end for children when they're taken from their abusive situation. There's so much more out there that can harm them and not allow them to heal the way that they deserve to heal, whether it be in their own family or in the foster system, especially in the court system. Believe children, protect them. That's what they deserve. So I hope that you can take something away from this and, maybe look into your state's laws, look into, cases that have been in your state or country and how they're dealing with children after they've come out with their abuse. It's really important. I mean, this is my entire life that I built based on the trauma that I've had from my childhood and into, my teen years and beyond. It's constant healing. And no matter what, I deserved that, and he did that healing. I hope that this helps you to better understand what it's like for a child who's been abused, the aftermath. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.